Okay, I'm seeing something funny. It says that the stream has ended and is not live on YouTube. So before I hit the intro, I'm going to go check that out. And I'm getting feedback from Rumble. Okay, looks like we are in fact live on YouTube, so I don't know what that was all about. Got a little nervous there because this is absolutely the kind of show that YouTube's going to want to kick off. You know, because YouTube, very much like the rest of the left-wing media establishment, is absolutely bought in to the massive conspiracy to steal the 2024 election. So let's get through the intro and dig into this. And good morning. All right. Okay, Pitt Danny says, so I would imagine the first question would be, why do you think the election was stolen? And the easy answer to that is, because I have eyes. Anyway, so good morning, everybody. I'm seeing feedback, comments from YouTube, from Facebook, from Rumble. I don't see anybody tapping in from Twitch yet, but I'm sure that'll come in a minute. But I see plenty of viewers on Rumble and Facebook and YouTube. Say good morning to Fish and Golf with First Blood there. Congratulations. Sergeant Major joins us pulling duty from Facebook this morning. I see Pitt Danny and Tim Lowry. Hey Tim, how's your face doing, brother? I hope you're doing okay out there. And GCM with us says FTP. Yes sir. And that is, you know, him saying FTP like that, you know, speaking of what we're about to dig into with corrupt prosecutors and the like. Same thing with the police, man. You need to remember that the corrupt politicians, the corrupt individuals that we're talking about in these Trump indictment cases, where the corruption is just blatant and naked. That's law enforcement, and the police are absolutely part of that same system. It breaks my heart. When I was a kid, you know, the policemen were the good guys, and that has changed. Prosecutors were the good guys, right? It was, before he was Two-Face, the Gotham's White Knight, Harvey Dent was an effective prosecutor who was heroic because he worked within the system to chase down and prosecute the corruption. And what made him a villain is when he was betrayed by his own system and decided that essentially he could no longer go after the corruption in his correct way, and he became a bad guy ostensibly, by betraying the system that betrayed him. That's why the character archetypally became the character Two-Face. With one face being the beautiful knight in shining armor character, and the other side of his face being a mask of death and corruption. And well, I wish I could say such kind things about someone like Fanni Willis, but if I'm being perfectly fair, Fanni Willis is not a two-faced prosecutor. She is only corrupt and evil. She has no redeeming qualities at all. So the first thing that I want to talk about is what actually happened yesterday. I've got this story from all sides, and I've got the story from the Gateway Pundit and a few others. We'll read the Gateway Pundit's version of it. Breaking: corrupt Fulton County Court website posts RICO charges against Trump before grand jury has voted. Before grand jury has voted. Takes down docs without explanation. And here's the list of the documents, right? These are charging documents with dates, and it says that it's been filed. Reuters reported the Fulton County, Georgia Court's website briefly posted a document on Monday listing several criminal charges against former U.S. President Donald Trump that appeared related to his attempts to overturn his 2020 election defeat in the state, before taking the document down without explanation. The Fulton County District Attorney's Office said in a statement that no charges had been filed against Trump, which is a lie. Right? The document was dated August 14th and named Trump, citing the case as open but is no longer available on the court's website. Reuters was not immediately able to determine why the item was posted or removed. The Reuters report that those charges were filed is inaccurate. Beyond that, we cannot comment, a spokesperson for the district attorney's office said. Question number one. Apparently the documents were posted on the website and then removed, and they were only there for about an hour. And somehow Reuters managed to get their hands on that. Now, there's one of two ways that could have happened. Either, and this is quite feasible. This is honestly a very feasible explanation. Reuters, being a news reporting service and understanding that there is big news about to happen related to Donald Trump, has a reporter staring at that particular website and just hitting the refresh button over and over and over again, right? Tim Pool pointed this out. It could be that they've just got somebody sitting there hitting the button over and over and over again, precisely so that they get the update the second it happens. Okay. Possible. Now, we've heard more than once over the last several years about enemy supporting leftist news outlets having their reporters on the ground in the middle of the night when FBI raids go in to conduct clearly politically motivated attacks on American public figures. Right? And we've got, there's more than one incident where that happened. Most recently, of course, was the raid on the. Actually, wow, no, I was about to say most recently was the raid on Mar-a-Lago, where the reporters were there when the FBI showed up. But I guess in all fairness, I should say that there were in fact reporters on the scene when the FBI went and murdered the man in Ohio the other day for threatening to assassinate Joe Biden. And to be clear, that is not a defense of the activity of a person threatening to assassinate the president. I'm not saying that what he did was okay. I'm saying that murdering a man in his bed is not okay. Let me be clear about that. Sending the FBI to murder people is not okay. All right. So Reuters has this story, and let me give you a little background. Let me give you a little heads up on who this Fanni Willis is. Fanni Willis, I mean, she is corruption from the get-go, right? We're talking about a divorcee child of divorcees who was born in the shitstorm of Inglewood, California, whose father was a lawyer and a Black Panther. And so, of course, a Black Panther shits out a creature in the cesspool that is California. And she moves to Georgia, where she becomes a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, which is an ethno-supremacist sorority group that engages in highly racist and hardcore leftist communist political activism. Right, that's who this woman is. Right, she is the product of ethno-supremacists and communism. A political activist from the very moment of her conception, who is now engaged in what is nakedly and transparently a corrupt implementation of law enforcement. She is corruption itself. I want to bolster that point. I want to go a little further and bolster that point by pointing out that she was previously barred from pursuing criminal case against Trump ally. Why? A judge in Atlanta cited a conflict of interest on the part of Fanni T. Willis. Her broader investigation into election meddling will continue. But in an embarrassing blow to the prosecutor investigating election interference by former President Donald J. Trump and his allies, an Atlanta judge has disqualified District Attorney Fanni T. Willis of Fulton County from developing a criminal case against one Georgia state official, citing a conflict of interest. Ms. Willis had recently notified State Senator Burt Jones, Georgia's Republican candidate for lieutenant governor, that he could face indictment. But on Monday, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Robert C.I. McBurney disqualified her from pursuing a case against Mr. Jones because she had headlined a June fundraiser for his Democratic rival in the race. She had headlined a June fundraiser for another Democrat who was Jones's rival in this particular race. Now, how is that related? Importantly, that is related because, as we know, she's currently pursuing these charges, this indictment, these charges against Donald Trump. Excuse me. She's currently engaging in this grand jury and trying to press charges against Donald Trump. And on Thursday last week, we had this occur. We have an announcement. Fulton DA Willis launches fundraising website. While the nation awaits the results of her office's more than 2-year investigation into alleged attempts by former President Donald Trump and his allies to overturn Georgia's 2020 election results, Fulton County District Attorney Fanni Willis has launched a new fundraising website. There's a lot going on in that paragraph. Okay, so she was previously barred due to conflict of interest because she was fundraising for the opponent of Burt. Now, she's fundraising for her own campaign as a Democrat running for office, and she's fundraising on the claim that she's going to be the prosecutor that indicts Trump. I'm sorry, where's the Fulton County judge that's going to come in and say, hold on a minute here, what you're doing is clearly motivated by ulterior forces. The corruption in these cases is just, it's amazing to me how naked it is. Xander Mack is making comments. I was watching Polytech last night, and he brought up the story that what's her face, Kachuk, Judge Kachuk, struck down Jack Smith's attempt to have Trump censored from making certain statements. But she said, however, I warn you, Donald Trump, to be careful what you say. This is not a victory, right? It feels like Trump got a win there, and in a very technical sense, he did. But the fact is that what she did. Oh, sorry, Xander Mack. You're correct. I was watching TPS Report Live. I'm not even sure what I actually said. But yeah, I was watching Xander Mack and Danny on TPS Report Live last night. But what this judge has done by saying, I will not allow the censorship because it's a clear illegal violation of Donald Trump's rights. But then out of the other side of her mouth saying, but I warn you, Donald Trump, don't say things freely because you do not have the freedom to speak. She has covered her ass politically and legally, and then gone on to threaten Donald Trump, to threaten him with consequences for violating the restriction that she legally has explained that she cannot place on him. She's trying to have her cake and eat it too. And our judicial system, our Department of Justice, is so vulgarly and horrifyingly corrupt that they will allow this to occur. And we have not one conservative or Republican prosecutor in the country with the testicular fortitude or sphincterial integrity to engage in an actual crackdown on this kind of corruption. The corruption is so naked and so obvious that no intelligent person can ignore it. And we can't even get a zealous political activist to engage in the appearance of propriety in defense of our justice system, our legal system, or the right of an American president to run for re-election. That is scary, scary shit. Right? I love my soapbox. I love my ballot box. They're trying to run us the fuck out of boxes. I don't want to run out of boxes. I've done the I'm out of boxes thing. I've seen where that goes. That is more fun than the world wants to see me having again. I know. They told me. So as we look at this, what we're seeing is an obvious conspiracy to fabricate conspiracies. The psychosis goes so far, and I don't remember if you mentioned this on your show last night or not, Xander Mack. There's a whole other piece to the prosecution and the indictment in Georgia. The claims, they're essentially claiming that Donald Trump, or at least Donald Trump's legal team, the language that they're using is very carefully chosen. Breached the Coffee County election machines. That's how they're phrasing it. That they breached the Coffee County election machines. What actually happened? They were invited by the election officials in Coffee County when there were very reasonable questions as to the verisimilitude and veracity of the election result. They were invited in one county to audit the reliability and security of the voting machines. And Trump's legal team, with a written invitation from the election officials of Coffee County, went to Coffee County and conducted an audit of those machines. Now, I'm not going to go down the whole Dominion voting machine path. That's a rabbit hole that, quite frankly, I think that there's so much obvious corruption and obvious vulnerability in the security systems around the Dominion voting machines that my suspicion is that those were left there intentionally, precisely so that it could be the red herring to distract you from how the election was actually corrupted. And there are two things can be true at the same time. The 2020 election was corrupted and it was stolen. And those are two different claims. Those are two importantly different claims. Because when we talk about the corruption of that election, what we're talking about is individual state governments illegally altering voting law and procedure without the constitutionally required entanglement of their local state legislatures. That means that the laws and regulations and procedural and policy changes made in those states, I'm looking at you, Pennsylvania, AG Shapiro, remember when Shapiro came out and said, we will continue to count votes until Joe Biden wins this election. Well, no, that's not what he meant. Okay, I'm sure. And I'm sure Joe Biden didn't mean it when he said we have created the largest voter fraud organization in history. Oh, no, it was a slip of the tongue. It was a Freudian slip. You know what a Freudian slip is? A Freudian slip is when you meant to say pass the salt, and instead you say you ruined my fucking life. It's not when you accidentally say something you didn't mean. It's the opposite of that. It's when you meant to say something innocuous and then you accidentally slipped and said the thing you really wanted to say. So, I'll grant that what Biden said was a Freudian slip, because it sounds a hell of a lot like what he said was the thing that he meant to say, even though he probably was at least told that he shouldn't say that thing. So what we're looking at with the several indictments of Donald Trump is naked and obvious, not just corruption. We're looking at an orchestrated, intelligent, and premeditated conspiracy to interfere with the 2024 election. Essentially, the same shadowy cabal that was detailed with receipts by the Time magazine article referring to the shadowy cabal that stole the 2020 election. How brazen are these people? I mean, just said it. The shadowy cabal that stole the 2020 election, according to Time magazine, is very much still engaged in precisely the criminal activity of interfering, premeditated interference with the upcoming election. Essentially, they've run out of end runs, and this whole lock him up thing is the last desperate attempt. Now, I want to close on this, and if you haven't watched any of Viva and Barnes doing analysis on this, go check out some of that. Robert Barnes is a very clever lawyer, and he makes the argument. He makes a very compelling argument that under the law, the Constitution does not allow for the indictment of a president, not even a former president. That the impeachment process must be applied to even a former president who is no longer occupying the White House. And he has several reasons that it has to go that way. Not least of which, and probably most importantly of which, is that unless the impeachment process in the Constitution protects the president from being indicted, then following any presidency, especially one like this where the president only served one term and is therefore within the confines of the Constitution as it stands today, only eligible to run for one more term, but is in fact eligible for a second term. In that case, he's left open to frivolous indictments by political activist prosecutors. If nothing else, and I'd hate to see Joe Biden benefit from this protection just on a gut emotional level, but if nothing else, I would like to see blatantly partisan activist conservative prosecutors start going after every Democrat they can in relation especially to this particular obvious conspiracy, which I will go so far as to say may not be the same conspiracy as the one that occurred in the lead up to the 2016 election and following on with the fabrication of Russian dossiers and all the like, but I will go so far as to say that it clearly contains many common original co-conspirators. Many of the same people who worked to fabricate evidence and craft the Russia hoax and the Ukraine hoax back in basically 2014 to 2020. Many of those same people, most especially unelected bureaucrats within the deep state, are involved in this conspiracy as well. And I know I keep using the word conspiracy, and people tend to knee-jerk away from that phrase, conspiracy, because you immediately go to these tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, et cetera, et cetera. The things that they're accusing Donald Trump of are conspiracy charges. Conspiracy to commit, conspiracy to defraud, conspiracy to conspiracy to commit forgery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's all conspiracy charges. And the funny thing about all of them is the basis for there having been a conspiracy is that Donald Trump acted on advice of counsel, which is to say that at its very core, these charges are related to First Amendment protected free speech and constitutionally protected attorney-client privilege. You have the right to an attorney. And so they're literally attacking your individual civil liberties, the right to speak freely and the right to access legal counsel. But quite separately from that, when I'm talking about conspiracies like the Russia hoax, etc., let's not forget, this is not speculation. The evidence shows very clearly that the Steele dossier was entirely a fabrication. The evidence provided to FISA courts was entirely fabricated. Right? It was falsified. It was intentionally falsified to produce illegally FISA warrants to conduct espionage activities against the President of the United States, the sitting President of the United States, and his allies and advisors. This is beyond intolerable. And it was absolutely done within the confines of what describes a conspiracy. and within the confines of the law's description, specifically, a conspiracy to defraud the American people and a conspiracy to defraud the American government. Right? Now, we know that the Clintons, their lawyers, and at least the large bulk of the Democrat National Committee was wrapped up in that. This is intolerable, but it is the situation we find ourselves in. Now, I have suspicions that tomorrow, Cameron and I when Cameron's back in the studio tomorrow morning, we will be revisiting probably this topic tomorrow, because I imagine he's going to have a thing or two to say about it as well. So, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for today and get on about my business. Y'all be safe. Thanks for watching this morning. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.